the latest video of my Knitting and Creative and Craft podcast. My name on Instagram is Orchids Heart and I live here in Birmingham with my partner and my slightly pregnant belly. I wanted to start by saying thank you for all the lovely messages and congratulations and all the kind things you guys have been saying to me over on Instagram and on YouTube. Yeah, it's been really lovely to read all of your messages. There were so many on Instagram that apologies I didn't actually reply to them, but they were so lovely and I'm really grateful for them all. Just there was a lot and I was a little bit overwhelmed, but thank you all the same. Yeah, feels a bit weird now the secret's out in the open. But at least now I can be a little bit more honest why I'm so groggy and tired all the time. But no, it's the start of a long weekend here. It's Easter. I'm not religious, so that doesn't really have any impact on me. But I'm really grateful for the time off. I also have booked next week off work, so I have just over a week off, which I am using to clear out, sort out, refresh, sort things out. Because it's the start of the new financial year, it was the earliest I could book like a sizable chunk of time off, and I was really eager that whilst I was still able to declutter, go through cupboard, sort out all of that, that I could make a really good start on that. Because you know how it is, spare rooms become dumping zones, and I really want it to be nice and tidy and clear for when the baby comes. So that's kind of mostly what I've been up to. Meanwhile, my partner is gutting the bathroom and redoing it, which has brought all kinds of chaos and mess, which I was not expecting it to be that bad. It's been awful. Dust everywhere. When he said he was redoing it, I didn't actually realise he meant take it back to brick and re-insulate and redo the floor and everything. It'll be lovely when it's done, but we're definitely in that really messy, awful stage where it's just not great. But there we go. So yeah, that's what we've been up to. My other big news is that and I'm looking at it right now, I bought a second-hand spinning wheel, an Ashford something, I don't know what the model is, and I'm still useless. I haven't really had much of a proper go at it yet. A friend of a friend is going to give me a bit of a in-person demonstration. I'm going to go to the Spinning and Embroidery and Dyeing Guild. Maybe it's not all three of those. I don't know, some combination of those words, in Birmingham, and she's going to give me a bit of a lesson and I'm hoping that will help. And so the reason why I am kind of hell-bent on trying to learn, even though I'm really struggling, is because I had this idea that it'd be really lovely to learn how to spin. Not to be any good at it, but learn the basics of how to do it before the baby comes, because I've got a year off work and I thought it might be quite a nice time to be able to practice spinning once I've got over the initial newborn madness. I mean, that might be ambitious because I'm also hoping to learn to drive. I don't know. Obviously, I've never had to keep another being alive before. So I don't know whether this I've got this feeling that I'm going to be off work, and I work full time for a whole year, so I'm going to have all of this extra time, but obviously I know that's probably a bit naive, probably not. But equally, I thought with the spinning at least, it's a fairly easy thing to kind of have a go at now, if I can, if I have time. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Everything I bought second hand. I can always sell it on if it doesn't work out. But I thought I'd give it a good go before the baby comes, and then hopefully I can practice when the baby's here. So yeah, but so far I'm a disaster zone, and my feelings about using a proper spinning wheel, as in not electric, are confirmed. It's really difficult doing something with my hands and my feet at the same time. I think it gave my partner a bit of reality shock because I go on all the time about how bad hand-eye coordination, and I think he thinks I'm making it up. He was quite amazed when he was watching me try to work it out, I think. I can do the treadle and keep the wheel going pretty much okay if that's all I'm doing. The minute I have to start trying to spin with my hands, it's a disaster. But I'm hoping that's something that I can improve with practice. I mean, I've been knitting for maybe 4 years now, and I can knit without basic stockinette stitch without looking. So there is hope. Just kind of hoping it's not going to take me 4 years. maybe 4 months. Is that ambitious? I don't know. But anyway, there we go. That's kind of what I've been up to. So I mentioned already that my name on Instagram is Orchid's Heart. I've also linked my Ko-fi sort of shop and account below. No pressure, but if you wanted to support me in some small way, you know, you can do a small donation on Ko-fi. Sometimes people do, even though I never mention it or ask, and it's completely out of the blue, and I'm always so grateful and always really makes my day. So thank you to those of you in the past who have, and thank you to anybody who feels now that they would like to. Yeah, it helps fuel my crafty passion and, you know, compensate a bit of my time for making these videos. It does take me quite a long time because I haven't got any high-tech situation going on at all, and so it's all quite slow. But you know, that's the way it is. I'm not doing it to, you know, make a living or stress myself out or anything like that. I do it primarily out of enjoyment. But thank you to anyone who does feel that they would like to support in some small way. I did also, inspired by Casey of Young Folk Knits, who I really enjoy watching, I made a small pattern wish list on Ravelry of all the patterns that I don't currently own, that I have kind of mentally on my knitting queue that I'd like to knit in the not too distant future. So if you wanted to support in that way by gifting me a pattern, that would also be very welcome. Feel a bit weird saying these things, but you know, YouTube people do, and I'm an amateur YouTube person. There we go. But yeah, so I will crack on then with talking about what this video is going to contain. I'm hoping it'll be a bit of a different video today. I'm going to try and structure it a bit different and insert some nice clips and things. We'll see how that goes, because I'm not really as busy and creative. I'm not as busy or as, what's the word? So I wouldn't say I'm being less creative, but I am doing less than perhaps I was doing before I was pregnant. I think it's really taught me to slow down and, I don't know, think about different ways of using time. I've been, as I mentioned last time, doing a lot more reading, a lot more resting, a lot more of doing nothing actually, and it used to be that doing nothing really stressed me out, but I've noticed lately that actually I do need some of that doing nothing time, because otherwise I get burnt out quite quickly. And whilst I am still working, that has been a bit of a balancing act to learn, because I can't work any less. Unfortunately, those hours are sort of stuck for now. Luckily, it does sound like I'm going to be finishing like 5 weeks before the baby comes, so I won't be working right up until the end. That's like a real luxury, and that's because of annual leave, because it's a new financial year. I've got to use all my annual leave, I think, before I go on maternity leave, so that works out quite well for me. But yeah, so I have no adult finished objects today. I do have a really lovely adult whip to share with you, as well as a whip that I'm going to pick up and revisit, so I'll share those with you. I have a couple of finished objects, but they are baby finished objects, but I'm going to share them nonetheless because the yarns are really lovely. So, you know, if you're not interested in baby knits, you might be interested in the yarns I've used. A future baby knit I'm going to cast on, and then I am hoping that in another segment that I'll probably film tomorrow or the day after, I'll be able to share it with you some of my sewing projects. I'm doing a bit of sewing today. It's Friday, the bank holiday Friday, and I'm hoping to finish, or mostly finish, a shirt that I started today. I am looking at a dress that is pretty much finished. I just want to put poppers down the front, and I'm hoping to rope my partner into helping with that later, just because I'm a bit nervous. I feel like buttonholes don't really scare me as much as they used to, but poppers, I feel like, because you've got to hammer them in and make a hole, if you get it wrong, it's game over, and it's the last thing you do, so it's a bit scary. But yeah, so hopefully I can film that segment tomorrow and show off those finished objects sewing wise. So, and then hopefully there'll be a few clips in between of the other things I've been getting up to at the start of this spring season, which I say somewhat doubtfully. I'm recording this now because it has been torrential rain constantly for the last couple of days, and we seem to have a moment of slightly less rain. In fact, it's not raining at all at the moment. It is a bit blue outside, so I thought the light now would be better than in like the dark, horrid, rainy situation. crack on with the knitting. So like I said, I have no adult finished objects. I shared with you last time my sweater number 9 light and my shawl, colour crow shawl I just finished. So I had, whilst I was working on that, cast on and did the neck ribbing for my next whip, which was a jumper whip. I'm just going to see the best way of showing this to you. There's a loud noise. I think it's the helicopter. Even though I live in the city, I'm quite fortunate where I live. It's actually quite quiet. We had my partner's mother come stay with us, and she's from like the proper countryside. She's always amazed that when she comes to stay with us in Birmingham, how quiet it is where we actually live. And so the only loud noise we really ever have to contend with is, I guess, the emergency services helicopter. I guess it's the police. I'm not really sure. You can kind of tell when they're looking for somebody because it hovers really low. But I think it was just flying over. Yeah. Anyway. Hopefully you can see this. It's a little bit bunched up. So I have split the sleeves and I am working on the body. And this is my Tuku pullover by the Petite Knitter. And I am knitting this in some yarns held double. I'm using Thrive by Woollentwine, which is an unspun yarn, and Midnatssol by Camarose. So I've got one of the Camarose labels here for the brown, kastanie brun. I think it's like chocolate brown or something like that. And then the cream, I think it was called oat or something like that, but I'll have to put it in the box below because I haven't got the label here, it's behind you. And yes, so I'm still on my first, we call them plates when they're unspun yarn, don't they? Although these didn't really feel like plates because they were much taller. I'm still on my first one of the brown. And I didn't wind them into balls. When I knit with unspun, I don't tend to wind it into balls. I tend to have them like this. And rather than using a project bag, I tend to use a box or a tray. I'm using the lid of a box that some fancy bedding came in a long time ago. And actually, I pretty much always use this when I'm knitting with unspun because it has a little bit of an edge. So, you know, it doesn't like go flying everywhere. And I find that if it's just there, I can unwind just a little bit, and then, you know, it works for me. Because I don't think I've done colour work with unspun before. I've never had two on the go at once. And so because I find it easier when I'm doing colour work to have one yarn either side of me or one colour either side of me, so in this case 2 yarns either side, I did actually, with the contrast colour, you know, unwind some and have it in a ball and work from it like that. Because the beauty of unspun is that even though it does break really easily, it does also join incredibly easily. So it didn't really matter to me if I just wound a bit off, used that, when I got to the end of that, wound a bit more off, used that, because I knew that I wouldn't use very much of the contrast colour, so I didn't want to wind the whole thing up. So yeah, I might attach that to the end of this and wind it back round, I don't know, before putting it back into my stash. So I've got quite a lot of this left. In fact, my scales are here, so I can probably just weigh it for you. So it should have been a 100-gram plate, and I've got just under 70 grams left. So maybe I used 30 grams of the contrast colour. I'm just interested to see how much I've got left of the brown. About 22. So I've used 80 grams so far of the main colour. So I bought 3 of these, like full plates, and I'm still on the first. I have a feeling I'm only going to end up using 2. So I don't know what I'm going to use the other 2 for. If anybody has in the UK any other unused sort of plates of the Thrive yarn by Woollentwine in a different colour, and they would like to swap for the chocolate brown. I think that was a really lovely rye colour at some point, was it? I think I've got rye. No, maybe I've got rye. Maybe this is rye. I'm sorry, I should have checked. I haven't got the labels here. But there was a really nice sort of medium kind of cream brown. Basically, you know, if you have any Thrive yarn in the UK and you would like to swap for some chocolate brown, do get in touch because I might be interested. I think the colour that I really like to look of was linen. I might be making that up. But yeah, there we go. So I'm really enjoying this. You know, if I end up keeping the 2, then I could make another jumper. I think 2 would be enough to make a jumper with a mohair or something. So that could be a future project. But I really like how the yarns are playing together. Hopefully I've shown you a bit of a close-up. Because the fluff is a little bit lighter than the main colour, it makes this really nice complicated brown. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about the neck. I said before that I wasn't sure whether I was going to fold it down or not and stitch it down, because that does look quite nice when it's on. I'm going to finish it and block it and wear it for a bit and see before I make that decision. Have I done any modifications? I did a couple more rounds before splitting for sleeves because I was a very naughty person and didn't gauge swatch for this. And so I tried on the colourwork yoke after I finished, and I felt I just wanted a couple more rows before I split into sleeves. So that's what I did. And so now I'm just knitting round and round on the body. So this will now probably become my working from home knit, or when I need like a quite easy bit of knitting in the evening. Instead, I think for when I want to do something where I'm concentrating, I'm going to make myself pick up one of my lingering whips. So I think I shared before that I was knitting on these Magical Mycelium socks by Stone Knits, and I'd only knit 1 and a bit. So I'm hoping that today, or maybe tomorrow, depending on how tired I am when I finish all the things I want to do today, that I'm going to pick this up and carry this on, because I think I just need to get cracking, and then they'll be finished and then I can wear them and love them. But it's just really a shame that I'm not enjoying them at the moment, so I really want to do that. So that's going to be my next concentration with. And once I've finished these, I'm going to treat myself to casting on another colourwork garment, a cardigan, a steeked cardigan, which I'm really excited to work on, and it's probably going to be another Petite Knit pattern, because the 2 I've got queued is the Alpenglow by Andrea Mowry and the Ovis by Petite Knit, and I think I'm going to knit the Ovis first because it's slightly more involved, and so if I don't get around to knitting both before the baby comes, I think the Alpenglow might be something that I could still do in the autumn. But going back to the Tuku, I think probably by the time I finish it, it's probably going to be too warm to wear it. So, or nearly the end of the season. So I might put it away as a gift to myself when autumn rolls around. The only thing is, and you know, tell me if you've got more experience, because of the fluff and because it's a pullover, I don't know how useful it's going to be with having a newborn, because I know you're not supposed to get fluff in their throats. So I don't know whether I will end up maybe not wearing it that much this autumn. I don't know. I also have a feeling that it's not as oversized as I thought it was going to be. It might not actually fit me when I finish it, which is fine, because I'm assuming at some point I will be a little bit different to how I am now. My belly's starting to get quite big and it's starting to stretch my jumpers a bit, so I might not actually be able to wear it. I might not have that choice. But there we go, we'll see. But yeah, so that's kind of my adult knitting projects at the moment. Just that one whip and the other sock whip that I'm going to pick up soon. So I have noticed when I film on my phone that if I go over 20 minutes-ish, it sort of cuts out and then you lose a few seconds of me speaking. That got to 21 minutes, so I don't know whether it's going to have done that or not. So I'm just trying to chop up the segments a little bit. I don't know why it does that. It didn't used to, or at least my last phone didn't. So I'm not really sure what that's about, but there we go. That's the way it is. There's nothing I can do about it. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is my baby knitted objects, my finished objects. So I've only got a couple. This isn't going to be a big section, but I have used some really lovely yarns, so I did want to share, and I'm quite pleased with them, to be honest. So the first one is a whip that I shared last time, and it's now finished. I can't pronounce the name of it because I think it's in Norwegian or something, but I'll put it on the screen. And this is a knitted onesie, and I've put my coconut buttons on and finished it, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm a bit worried that it won't fit because it'll be too big. I don't know. My baby's coming end of July, and I wanted this to be for the winter. I thought it'd be quite good for that first winter where, I mean, I'm assuming, it's a he, by the way, he won't be you know, wriggling around all that much, so I thought it would be quite good in the pushchair when we go outside for winter walks. So I kind of knit this as like an outer garment, and I knit the 3 to 6 month size, but it looks really long to me. Is my baby going to be that long? I don't know. It's kind of alarming thinking that this tiny little thing in my belly at the moment could be that big by December. I don't know. That might be ambitious. My partner's really tall and really long though, so could have a long baby. We'll see. If it'd been stockinette, then and it was too long in the middle, I could have done some surgery, like cut it in half and then kitchened back together again and taken some of the middle length out. But in garter, I think that would be too messy. I don't know that I'd be able to do that. So if it's too long in the middle, I don't really know what I'm going to do. It was a hell of a lot of knitting. I knit it in this yarn by Camarose, and I think it's just the organic wool DK. It softens up so much once you've washed it. I did wash this in the machine on a wool wash, a cold wool wash, and it's just softened up so much. I was a bit worried that this would be a bit rough, but knowing that I was knitting it as a outer garment rather than something on the skin, I wasn't so worried. But actually I think I probably would use it for a jumper for the baby now. And I do really recommend it for a yarn for yourself too. It is really woolly. It does definitely feel like real wool. But I don't think it'd be itchy. I think it'd be really lovely to wear. It doesn't say what breed of yarn it is. Breed of yarn, breed of wool. But it feels quite, like it could be quite hard wearing. So there we go. And I don't know if I mentioned I used coconut buttons. But yeah, I had a bit of a, I did do a gauge swatch for this because I thought with all the shaping it'd be quite important. And I've got to be honest, this gauge swatch made no sense to me whatsoever. It seemed to be that I was completely way out, yet it looked right and measured right when I was knitting it. I don't know, I didn't really understand, but it is what it is. That might be why it's so long. But I think I knit to the length rather than, yeah, that was right, because I actually have an extra buttonhole than I was meant to, because I knit to the measurement it said, and because it said knit to a certain measurement, and so that's why it came out that size. So I don't really know what's happened with that. But there we go, that's my biggest baby knit I'm going to do. I'm probably not going to knit another onesie because there are some really lovely, like, just garment, not outerwear onesies, but it's a lot of knitting. Doesn't sound like it's a very practical thing to have in terms of a bit of a pain to dress them in and out of. And I don't, when I can buy some really lovely cotton kind of like onesie situations, which are probably more useful, I'd rather do that and invest my time doing other projects. Also, like I said last time, I'm not going to go knitting mad, she says, with 4 finished objects. I've made myself a little bit of a list of like 2 newborn hats, 2 3 to 6 month hats, 2 6 to 12 month hats, whatever. And I'm just going to knit those few things because I don't want to knit too many things ahead of time and then the baby come and him not be the right size at the right time, etc. And then have all these things I kind of regret using nice yarn or spending the time doing. So I have knit my first jumper. And so this is the 3 month size. And it's the baby Aosta. Well, I've said that wrong. But I think the Knit Pearl Girl, I've never knit anything by her before. And I just think this is the most gorgeous thing in the world. This yarn I bought when I went to the John Arbon open mill day. They had like a bargain bucket of mill ends of like I've got some here. Just like they were mini skeins, but they were ends of like cones and things. And I kind of raked through to find some that were the same, and they were a bit, well, quite a lot cheaper than buying like a big skein of yarn. And so I had 3 skeins of Viola DK in the cinnamon colour, which gave me about 75 grams, which was not enough because this jumper is supposed to be considerably longer. But my baby already has about 10 pairs of dungarees because my mum's been thrift shopping baby dungarees. And so I thought, even though it is a bit short, it might work really well with dungarees or over a onesie or something like that. And so I'm not too worried. I could have knit the ribbing longer, but I think it would have looked out of proportion. But I really, really like this pattern. I really recommend it if you want to knit a baby knit. It was really quick. It was quite easy. I think it's really classy looking. I really like that it has the open neck. These buttons are from Merchant & Mills. And yeah, so they're made of something, I'm not sure what it is, Corso maybe? I don't know, but they're not plastic, they're not wooden. And they all come in these really grungy, nice colours. So I have some yellow ones I'm going to put on my next baby knit. I'm actually knitting the same jumper in the same size again, but without the texture and using stripes. So I will show that to you in my next video. But yeah, I think it's really cute and really, really, really lovely. And I do really recommend the pattern. I'm really enjoying knitting it twice. And I think I'll probably knit all of the sizes. But I do have a question for you guys actually. How long should you have the opening on a neck of a jumper for your child before you don't need to worry about it anymore and you can just have a normal neck? Like how long should I be doing the button front jumpers for? Up to a year? Would that make sense? Or not? I don't know. Please tell me. And then I've made 2 hats. This one I actually made ages ago. This was the first thing I cast on after we went to the 12-week scan and we were told everything was okay. And this was just like a bit of a gimmicky knit. This is the Bear Bonnet or something. It's a free pattern. I'll link it below. It's not the Barely Bonnet because I think you have to pay for that one. Or maybe it is, I don't know. It's a free pattern and I knit this in leftover yarn from a cowl I made, and it's by Ampersand Fibres. I think it's Cormo. It's a sport weight. I'll link it below. But yeah, so I knit that really quickly because I promised myself that once we went to the first scan and we were told it was okay, that's when I could start knitting things. So this is supposedly the newborn size, I think, but it is actually a bit bigger than the newborn cotton hat that I knit. So I don't know, it's possible that this might end up being a combination, I don't know. The colours don't quite go, but there we go. And then the last baby knit I've got to share with you is the Rigmor's Bonnet by Petite Knit, which I've knit in a cotton yarn. Ages and ages ago I bought all these like small skeins of cotton yarn in colours I really like from Sostrene Grene, and then thought I don't know what I'm going to do with them. So I held it double, which gave me a bit of a thicker gauge than I was meant to, and I knit the newborn size in cotton because I thought that might be good for the summer when he comes. So, I mean, sadly, it matches the buttons perfectly, but in theory this is a smaller size than this is, but of course, who knows? We don't know. And I've got quite a lot left, so I don't know if I'm going to do like a stripy newborn cotton version of this, maybe. I kind of feel like from what I was watching other videos that a proper cardigan with buttons all the way down the front might be better for a newborn. So that might be what I do instead. The only thing is I don't actually really like knitting back and forth very much. So we'll see. I've got some grey, so I am thinking that like grey and these two colours might be really lovely for a striped garment. Let me know what you think. And then I'm going to cast on I'm getting my yarn out, the little pumpkin hat, and I've got hopefully enough of this really lovely orangey yarn left over from John Arbon from a cardigan that I made for myself, and this is the Yarnadelic in the colour Wondrous Place. And so this is 25 grams. I've got a little bit more. I don't know how much it said it needs. About 90 metres. I might have to knit the smallest size. The smallest size would be 70 metres. I might have enough for that. This might be ambitious, I don't know. I might not have enough. I might need to rethink that plan. I'm hoping that with the way people overestimate yarn usage, I might be alright. Yeah, I need to knit the second size reading, not the first size. We'll see. But it's the little pumpkin hat by Asita Krebs. I just think it's really cute, and I think in orange it would really have those pumpkin vibes. So yeah, that's kind of where my knitting is at the moment. I did have a small acquisition. I went to a charity shop the other day and they had loads of cotton and linen yarn. And I picked up 5 of these Rowan Pure Life Revive. And it's in this kind of like pearl colour with pinks and blues and yellows in it. And it's recycled silk cotton and recycled viscose. 50 grams, 125 metres. I think that makes it DK. And I've got 5 of them, so I've got 250 grams. So that's, I think, enough to knit a summer garment for myself. But I'm not really sure what. Maybe a ranunculus. I've never knit one of those before. But I think that could look really beautiful in that, maybe. Yeah, let me know what you think. I'm open to suggestions. Yeah, there we go. That's kind of everything from me in terms of knitting. Hopefully you'll see me soon talking about my sewing. Hello and welcome back to my sewing section. So I wanted to separate out my sewing from my knitting making in this podcast a bit more clearly. It's a couple of days later, a bit later than I intended. I had really hoped the day after I filmed the first section of this video that I would be able to put the poppers on my 2 latest sewing makes. But even though a friend lent me a tool for putting them in, I couldn't work out how to use it, nor could my partner, and he deduced that the pieces I was using were the wrong size. That's why it didn't work. And so the tooling I have is almost the right size. There's one bit that just slightly isn't, and he said actually it'd be really easy for him to whip a piece up that would then work with the rest of what I have when he's next at his workshop tomorrow. So I'm waiting for that. I didn't want to wait until Friday, it's Wednesday today, to record the video because I want to edit it and have it ready to go out for the weekend. So I decided I'm going to sit down with you now and talk about my sewing makes. And they haven't got poppers on, but I can talk to you about the process and what they are, etc. And then I can insert a clip of me wearing them when they're actually done, because that'll be quite quick to lay over an already edited video before then exporting it. So yes, the glorious sun we had for a couple of days is now completely gone. It's dark and gloomy and raining. Yeah, horrid. But that motivates me to stay in and do jobs. So I've got a really weak chocolate chai instant coffee. I bought some the other day because I was interested to try it. I'm really trying to monitor my caffeine intake at the moment because, you know, obviously being pregnant you're supposed to. So I made it quite weak, and actually it's quite nice. I think I'm talking quite quickly, so I'll try and slow down. So I have 2 almost finished objects, sewing wise, to show you, and then a dyeing base disaster, and a plan for my next project, and the 2 are kind of connected. So let's start. Right, so oh, and if you're interested and you don't recognise it, I'm wearing my sweater number 9 light by My Favourite Things Knitwear. Sorry, I'm like worried I've got coffee around my mouth. By My Favourite Things Knitwear, which I knit in a DK naturally coloured yarn that I bought in Rhinebeck, and I spoke about it in a video not so long ago. I would imagine it's in the thumbnail of that video because it was the finished object for that podcast. So the first thing I've nearly finished is my Gilbert top. This is a shirt pattern, potentially by Helen's Closet. I would need to double check. That information should be in the description box below. And I've made it in a striped linen. I think it's a printed stripe because the stripe's only on one side. And that actually made making this a bit easier. I made a mock-up, or like a toile, out of an old bed sheet a couple of months ago. In the start of January, I kind of had this kind of like, I'm going to make X, Y and Z sewing wise, and I started and I cut a few things out, including the dress I'm going to show you in a minute, but it's taken me this long to actually sew them up. So I did the toile of the shirt and it came out, I mean at that point I could only just do it up over my chest and my tummy, and so I thought the idea with this was to wear it maybe like after the baby came, because I was thinking about putting poppers on the front, so I thought if I do end up breastfeeding it would be quite useful. So maybe I still would have quite a big bust then, I don't know. I don't normally. My normal pre-pregnant self is quite flat-chested, so this is an experience I've never had to face before. And so I went up a size. So I think normally I would make for a 32-inch bust, and I made a size up from that, which I think is a size 4. I can't remember, but would have thought it'd be the 3rd size, because normally I'd make the 2nd size of something. And so I sized up, and making it a 2nd time was a bit easier. There is this special method for doing the yoke where, I mean, the finish at the end is really lovely. You end up with no exposed seams because it uses a burrito method. But I think basically I don't enjoy making shirts. There's just too many steps. There's collars, there's like finishing the fronts. In this case, the burrito back yoke situation. And by the end I was just really tired of it. I mean, the only seam I'm not that keen on is my shoulder seams. I couldn't really figure out how to do a neat shoulder seam with a French seam, which is what I would normally do when there isn't some kind of crazy special method. This is a French seam here, and so there's no raw edges. You end up kind of sewing it twice, but when there's a curve or something kind of fiddly going on, I find that really difficult to do that as a French seam. So I didn't. I just overlocked it, and I figured I'm never going to see it anyway, so it's okay. So I'm really pleased with it. It does only just do up at the moment, but that's okay. Maybe I would wear it open in the summer when I'm really pregnant, I don't know. And it hangs a lot better than the one I made out of the old tablecloth, so that's a good sign. And I think with a bit of washing and wearing, it'll be really good. And so I was definitely going to put the brass poppers on, because I read, so I'm a big fan of Not Perfect Linen, which is a clothing company that makes clothes out of linen, and they put poppers, brass poppers, on a lot of their clothing. And I read someone saying on like a post about their clothes that it was really useful and better to have poppers than buttons when you're breastfeeding, because it's just a bit quicker. But the thing is about poppers, I don't like the way they look when they're undone, because they have that sticky out like bit. And I don't think it's as pretty as an undone buttoned shirt. So when I was trying to sleep last night, I did think maybe I should just go ahead and do buttons on this one, because I mean, it doesn't button all the way up to the neck. It will start buttoning about here. So probably I'd only be undoing 1 or 2 buttons. I mean, anyone who has more experience than me, is it going to be really annoying undoing 1 or 2 buttons? Am I going to be in that much of a hurry ever? I don't know. So now I'm kind of feeling like going back to my old favourites and just putting coconut buttons on this one. What do you think? The reality is, I think by the time this video goes up, I would have decided. So I'm asking you, but you're not going to get any say. Maybe I'll do a poll on Instagram instead. The brass buttons did look really nice against the fabric, but I'm kind of getting impatient and I want to finish these things and put them in my wardrobe rather than just hang them out. I've been doing lots of cleaning and tidying this week. I mean, you can't see the other side of the room, it's a complete tip, which is part of the reason why I'm sat on a stool here, because it's not actually that comfortable sat here. Even though I'm aware it's probably better lighting and better than being in the window. And my head isn't cut off like it was in the first part of this video, which, I'm sorry, I didn't actually notice my head was cut off until after I filmed it. But because there's nowhere to put things other than the floor, and reaching the floor is a bit tricky, it's not that great sat here. Maybe I need to think about that though, because it is easier setting up the camera here. I'm not wedging it between the window bed and my yarn cabinet, which is why the angle's always a bit weird when I'm in the window, because I can't get it any further away or any more in front of me. So I'm always sat slightly at an angle. But yeah, anyway, so I think maybe I might end up putting buttonholes on the shirt this afternoon. My sewing machine does really neat, good buttonholes, so it's not really a stress for me. And was it the last thing I sewed? It might be the last thing I sewed, which means the thread is already on my sewing machine. That is tempting. I'm going to put a poll on Instagram today and see what everyone says. Maybe I'll put a screenshot of the results on here if I remember. So my second, so hopefully I've shown you a video of me wearing it. However way I decided to go. Maybe it won't be done up as discussed. Maybe I'll try, I don't know. Because the other problem I'm having at the moment is every time I put on a skirt, I feel way bigger than I actually am. I don't know what it is about the gathers, like, because you have to have the waistband obviously quite high up. I just feel really self-conscious. I mean, I'm just in leggings and a jumper at the moment, but I mean, most of the time, I guess, I don't look so pregnant, but when I put a skirt on, I feel massive. And I'm just not used to it yet. And I also think, if this is how I look now, how am I going to look in a few months' time? Oh, yes, it's a bit of, that was something I didn't really think about. I thought I would just accept it, but, you know, obviously it's fine, but it's taking some getting used to. And I definitely do feel more self-conscious in some clothes over others. So what I'm trying to say is I don't really wear anything at the moment that's just a bottom half, other than dungarees. So unless I can wear the shirt with dungarees, in which case you're not going to see most of it anyway, I don't really see myself wearing it before the baby's born. I've been preferring things that don't really have a fitted waistband, whether that be dungarees, dresses, or yeah, dungarees and dresses really. It's pretty much what I've been wearing, or overalls of some sort, jumpsuits, which ties into my third make, but I haven't started that one yet. So my next finished object, which might be a bit tricky to show you because it's quite big, is an Old Faithful. It's a Hinterland dress. And I did wonder actually if anybody would be interested in a video about all the Hinterland dresses I've ever made. I know it's a pattern that a lot of people have made and maybe it's a bit overdone, but actually it's one that I do enjoy making. I find it really easy. I find it a really good staple shape. This one I have made with a button placket all the way down and the original neckline. Normally I make them with a more like a higher neckline and no buttons down the front. And yeah, so this one I made a bit different. But you know, if you were interested in me making a video about all the Hinterland dresses I've ever made, I would be totally up for doing that. It's a pattern by, oh, sorry, I've noticed there's lots of stray threads I've not dealt with. It's a pattern by So Liberated, and I really, really recommend her patterns if you want to learn to sew, because most of them she offers ways of making it a bit easier or a bit harder depending on how many finishes and techniques you want to use. And whenever she gives you like a new technique, she does really talk you through it or link you to a video that does. And I've never found her patterns confusing. There were definitely moments with the Gilbert top, even though it was really well written, that I was a little bit like, I don't know if I'm doing this right or not. And maybe I didn't really explain. That's why I found it easier using a fabric that had a right side and a wrong side. Because when I was doing the collar and the burrito section on the back, I got really muddled with my white tablecloth version, which looked the same on both sides, like what I was doing. So it really helped being able to clearly see which is the right side and the wrong side. And mostly the fabrics I use tend to be things like this, quite plain cottons and linens, and they don't tend to have a right and wrong side, and therefore I get very confused in those situations. Just gonna have a bit of coffee. I should have brought my table a bit closer. There's nowhere really to put it. But with Hinterland Dress I don't really have that problem. It's quite a straightforward pattern. There isn't anything overly complicated about it, I don't think. So this one, unlike normally, I did the neckline as stated in the pattern. I did, however, lengthen the sleeves to as long as the fabric I had in the sleeve section of where I was cutting it out would allow me, because I wanted to make a Hinterland dress for now, although maybe it might be starting to get a bit too warm, but also for this autumn after I've had my lovely little baby, and I wanted something that would be really comforting and cozy and familiar and useful, but also something that I could continue to wear after that period of life. And so I have made this from a cotton, what was it? I bought it from Blackbird Fabrics in Canada in the sale last year, and they said it would feel like a brushed cotton. I think it's a cotton linen blend. Linen blends are something I tend to avoid because I'm a bit of a purist, but I really like the feel of brushed cotton, and so I was slightly sold by that. And the colour, obviously it's like this grungy ochre colour, so it's really my cup of tea. And I thought a fabric that felt like brushed cotton might be something that'd be really cosy when it's a bit colder, maybe layered over one of my merino wool thermal layers. And if I did the button down front with poppers, this one's definitely going to have poppers, that could be quite useful for that period of life. And maybe fit a little bit like daytime pyjamas. I don't know. The other thing I do with my Hinterlands that isn't in the pattern, I never make binding out of the fabric that I'm using for the dress, because you have to cut it at an angle, and I find it's quite wasteful use of fabric. Or if it asks for a facing, I don't bother doing facings. I always use really pretty bias binding. I'm lucky my local fabric shop sells bias binding by Atelier Brunette. I'm not the biggest fan of their fabrics because I had a bad experience with their viscose. They didn't really wear very well, but I do use a lot of their bias bindings because they're pretty, and they're generally about £1 a metre in my shop. And so I picked this one because it had a bit of the gold ochre on it, but I think it's a nice contrast. And I used the same on the cuffs. And that one isn't, that bit there isn't done quite so well, but I used the same on the cuffs. And yeah, what else to say? It has pockets. And another thing I tend to do to sort of save on fabric is I'll use scraps to do my pockets. This is actually from some old pyjamas that were made of brushed cotton, and they were like my favourite pair of pyjamas, so soft. I wore them so much I wore through the butt. And so this is from lower down on the legs where the fabric was still totally intact. And so when I put my hands in my pockets, it'll feel like a cosy, soft feeling. So yeah, my comfort dress. So I just need to do the poppers. I've marked out where I'm going to put them, mostly. And hopefully my partner can help me do that when we've finished the tooling. And I will check that the sleeves are all right, because I haven't actually properly tried this on yet, so I don't know whether, because I just lengthened the length of the sleeve, whether it's going to be too baggy that far down and I might need to take the sleeve in a bit, or whether it's all right. Didn't want it to be too tight. And yeah, so the only other thing left to say was, when I first made the Hinterland, I think the size it recommended me to make for my body was the size 4, and I made 2 in that size before deciding that it was too big for my pre-pregnant body. However, I have actually now been wearing both of those quite a lot lately, because that bit of extra sizing has like fitted my current body much better. So after making those 2, I started making a size 2 instead. Like, I went down on the body. I don't think I bothered reprinting and cutting out the skirt panels again, because they're just rectangles. You can gather them in all as much as you want. And so I started making a size 2 bodice, but this is a size 4. So it will be, if I do go back to my original shape, it will be a bit big on me then, but you know, that's fine. This was meant to be a cozy, comforting layer. And you know, I did still wear my size 4 even when I wasn't pregnant, so I'm not too worried about that. Or it can go away for the eventuality that I do end up having another child. I don't know. But the other thing is, I kind of feel like this fabric might not wear that well. So it might be that I just wear it to death over, you know, that year. And then maybe it will just be like a house dress after that. I don't know. But I'll be interested to see, and I'll let you know how the fabric wears. I will say I did not enjoy cutting the fabric out. And I would say it's definitely not cut straight on the grain. It'd be a bit difficult for me to show you on camera. But to be honest, it was a horrid experience cutting it out, partly because I did cut it out when I still wasn't feeling very good in the first trimester, and I was trying to cut it out on the floor, which, if you've ever cut fabric out or patterns out on the floor, so uncomfortable. But I was doing it over Christmas at my parents-in-law, or maybe it was in January at my parents-in-law, sort of, we're not married, but there you go, may as well be. And the fabric kept shifting around. I got really upset because obviously, you know, emotions everywhere. My partner tried to help me. He did a terrible job because he didn't understand how important it was for it to be on grain. But there we go. So we had an argument about it, and like, some of it was just cut out really badly. So I was really worried that the final result would show that. But I think I'm really lucky, and actually it looks quite good, though I do say so myself. We'll see over time what happens. So that's my second almost finished object. And then the last thing I want to talk about was what I'm going to make next. So I'm hoping that I can actually, with the remainder of my time off this week, once I've finished the rest of the sorting out here in my sewing room. So I was using the spare room as my office, working from home, but that's going to be the baby's room. So as we all do with our spare rooms, I just, you know, my creative hobbies spread out across here, the office, the dining room, well, not the dining room, the dining room is our dining room, like living space. Our house isn't that big, but we've got a separate dining room. Like, it just split out over everything, and I've been trying to consolidate and get everything back into this room, which has been tricky because this room hasn't got any bigger. So, you know, I've been having a good sort out and etc. So that's kind of been my task for this week. But I'm hoping that by Friday I will be done, and then I've got the weekend to sew this project. So I have a linen jumpsuit from Not Perfect Linen in a beautiful rust colour that I have been wearing a lot lately. I wore it a lot beforehand. In fact, like, the inside leg is wearing really thin, so I am going to preemptively reinforce it so it doesn't completely wear through. And I thought, wouldn't it be lovely to have another one? So I bought mine a few years ago when I actually wasn't employed, as when I first came back actually, and they did like a second sale for people who didn't have the financial means to buy their clothes. And so I bought mine really cheap, probably for about £40. And I never really worked out why it was a second, to be honest. To me, it's always seemed like I've never found a problem with it. But then I've never had a jumpsuit from them that wasn't a second to compare it. I don't know whether there's something missing that I'm not aware of. I don't know. But I've since, now that I do have the financial means, bought a couple of things from them full price. I love their clothes. But in the last 2 years or so, I think because of Brexit and Etsy fees increasing and all the rest of it, I mean, it's just too expensive. I think when I bought my jumpsuit, the full price would have been 90 and I paid between 30 and 40. Now it's 150. And so I went to look to buy a green one the other day, the same colour as my linen trousers I have from them, because I thought that'd be a really nice item of clothing to have in my wardrobe right now. And I thought, I'm not spending £150 on a linen jumpsuit. I can't afford it. I can't justify it. Not when I can actually sew and make clothes. Like £90 didn't seem that bad, because realistically buying 2 meters of linen or 2.5 meters of linen probably would cost up to £40, if not a bit more, depending on what sort of linen it was. So I thought, you know, I could justify maybe 90, saving myself the time to make it. Yeah, not 150. So I thought I would make the Paper Theory Zadie jumpsuit, because it's very similar. In fact, when I've been wearing my jumpsuit out before, I have been asked if it is a Zadie. But the legs on mine are tapered, like more of a, do they call it a peg leg? So I am going to make this, but I'm going to see if I can taper the legs, because the tapered legs work really well with my Blundstone boots, and I'm not convinced that this leg style would. So I don't know if I'm going to make just the bottom half out of some old fabric, or whether I'm going to cut them out, because there's more fabric than I would need for the tapered, and just cut them down. I haven't decided. But so I initially thought a mustard one, which I think is what the example is on the pattern picture, would be really lovely. So I bought some yellow linen, what I thought was mustard, on the internet in anticipation for my time off. And it arrived, and I don't know whether this is going to show up very true to colour, and it was like this dull primrose colour. Now, objectively, it's not an ugly colour, but it's not a colour that I would wear. It's too pale, it's too washed out, and I hated it. So that's not the mustard or the gold ochre that I was hoping for. So I thought I would dye it darker, so it would come out mustard. So I put it in a light brown dye bath. It got worse. Now, I did take a photo of this next to my jumpsuit that I wear a lot. This looks like a washed out version of the jumpsuit I've got. It's like a pale, insipid, rusty colour. I like a really bold, dark, rich rust colour. Again, it's not that I don't dislike the colour exactly, but it's just not the rich colour that I like. And also it has gone from mustard to, well, yellow to the orange territory. And what's the point of making another orange jumpsuit? So I was really disappointed. Didn't go the way I wanted it to. So knowing that I've got this time off now, and I am not going to get any more sizable chunks of time off before I'm 9 months pregnant, and I want this garment to wear, I went to my local fabric shop and had a look at what they had, and I'm really glad I went rather than choosing something online, because I did pick something out online that I was then going to go look at in the shop, and which was like a mustard linen, and when I got there it was also like more of a primrose colour, which just isn't for me. So I picked up this colour instead, which isn't really what I was aiming for, because it's not very summery, but you know, I'll wear it in the summer anyway. I'm not really someone who has summer and winter colours. I wear the same colours all year round. So yeah, I'm going to make it from this. So I've already washed it. I'm hoping that tomorrow I can cut the pattern out ready for me to start sewing at the weekend. That's the goal. I did really fall in love with the fabric on Ray Stitch that I really wanted to make the jumpsuit from. I didn't buy it because it was £25 a metre, and I thought that's a lot of money to spend on a jumpsuit because I need 2 and a bit metres. Ironically, I've now just bought 2 lengths of linen to make a jumpsuit. It would have been cheaper just to buy the one I really wanted. but I thought if this works out and I like the fit, then I probably will treat myself to that linen, and that might be my final kind of sewing project before the baby comes. Because I think once I've made it once, I will know how manageable it is for me to make it again, whether I could make it just over a weekend or, you know, in drips and drabs throughout the week. I find once I've made something once or twice, it gives me a bit more confidence, whereas if it's completely new, I feel like I really need the headspace to sit down and really focus on it, so which is why I want to do it whilst I'm still off. But yeah, I think that's everything sewing wise. Probably everything I'm going to share with you today. Yeah, let me know what you think about a hinterland dress video. I think that's a video I could probably whip up fairly quickly because they're all already made. And yeah, that's it for now. I was kind of hoping that I could go back to doing videos once a fortnight, but it's not really working. I'm obviously not able to stick to that timeline, so it's kind of become every 3 weeks. So I don't know whether I should just do once a month and cut myself some slack, but then I haven't got that many months left, so I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I'm going to end it there because I'm getting a bit blathery. So yeah, if you aren't already subscribed, please do. I think a lot of people watch these videos but don't subscribe. It would really help me a lot if you did. Yeah, or give me a like or a comment or let me know what you're up to. Have you made a hinterland dress? Do you really like it? What are your favourite modifications? I don't know, share with me what you're up to. That would be really lovely. Thank you and have a nice rest of your day. Goodbye.